And then share my screen to the cardiovascular. And yesterday we went through the heart, talked about a good heart versus a bad heart, and how you want it to look, right? Everybody can hear me okay? Hold on.
Yes, can
Yeah.
hear you just fine.
Okay.
Yes, I
All
can
right.
hear you.
Cool. Okay. And then we talked about how the cardiac muscle is one of the few muscles in the body that actually works from the 4 weeks of life to the time you are dead. It does not stop working, and it's ran. And I was telling you, it's ran by the autonomic nervous system. So that means you don't have to think about it. Whoever logged on, they've got to go ahead and mute their mic. Um, the Hold on 1 second. Let me see. Okay. Um, thanks. So somebody else's kids were in class. the Then we talked about the heart chambers, right? And we learned how uh, deoxygenated blood comes in over here and goes to the lungs, becomes oxygenated, becomes powered up, ready to go, and then it enters back in here, oxygenated and ready to be sent through the body. And that's what these slides were doing. Then we learned about our valves, and we learned that the tri means three, and there's three flaps, and that the mitral valve is also known as the bicuspid, bi meaning two, because there's two flaps, right? And then we learned about how the left ventricle was the powerhouse. And then this is what I forgot to post for y'all yesterday. Like I said, it was crazy, but I'll do that today. And then the flow through the heart. And like I said, I'm really sorry about yesterday. I was just trying to desperately get uh, things situated and organized as best as I could. And then today we're going to talk about the vascular system of the heart. And this picture is an excellent picture because it allows you to see the heart, right? You can see the outside shape of it, but it allows you to see its very own circulatory system, meaning this here is only there to supply blood to the heart. So it has a designated blood supply. All right. And that's good because we need a heart to have that because of how important it is. We don't need it to have to rely on um, any time delay or anything like that. It's immediate action. And so the heart itself is, and I don't expect you to remember all of these because we're just going this for MAs. If you go into nursing, you will. The right coronary artery, and then what's called the left main coronary artery. And this is this really big one. It runs all the way around. And then the distal wraps, and then there's this one that they call the circumflex, and it wraps as well. So basically, when you hear about somebody having a heart attack and they talk about percentages or blocks, right? What that means is where exactly is the plug? So there's when you have usually when you have a heart attack, it's because one of these arteries has gotten clogged up, blocked, or died. So that's depending on where it's at. It's up here, they used to, you know, give it a certain term. And down here, so each one of these have different terms, right? So that's how they base that off of. All right. Um, we know, and we should be able to remember, and if you don't, write this down because this is important. An occlusion means blockage, right? Do we want blockage inside of our heart? No, that's absolutely not. We don't want any kind of blockage really anywhere. We want everything moving and freely flowing. But what happens when we have blockage in the heart is that the heart actually becomes deprived of oxygen. And one of the very first symptoms of that is what your patient might tell you is pain, chest pain, right? And we know that if it's not reversed, if this occlusion is not reversed, meaning given medication or surgery or correction quickly, that this person could actually lose um, parts of the functioning of their heart, have heart damage, or even die. So this is a very important word to know. Occlusion. It means blockage, okay? And ischemia. Ischemia is the next term that you need to write down and make sure that you know. Ischemia is basically a lack of blood flow to the heart, okay? So if something becomes ischemic, that's really bad because an ischemia can happen anywhere. It can happen in a vessel in the brain or in a finger, it can happen. But when we're talking about ischemia to the heart, that's deadly, right? So there's lots of terms on here that you got to write. The next one is going to be what we know myo is muscle, right? So myocardium, that's our heart muscle. And an infarction is basically death, okay? So if I said myocardium infarction, that lets you know heart muscle death. So that's basically what an MI, all right? And I'm going to go back over this. That's what an MI means. And what is an MI? A heart attack. So while you're taking those notes, I want you to put down heart attack equals MI. In a little parentheses, you can put MI means myo, muscle, cardium, the heart, infarction, death, right? And that way you understand the severity of when somebody says MI. You know, it's a heart attack, right? So we are actually having an occlusion or ischemia of the heart that is preventing blood flow, that is leading to death of a specific area. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about any of that before I move on?
Is that considered a thrombus form
No. Now
that develops in the coronary artery?
could that's not the same, but could you get a thrombus there? Yes. See, you could have embolus um, and thrombus. Usually, I personally haven't heard of anybody developing an actual thrombus in the heart, but I'm sure it could happen. But I have heard of embolus, because remember, a thrombus is fixed, but an embolus is when it breaks off. That blood clot or fat clot or whatever breaks off and travels. So, and I have heard of embolus being the cause of somebody having an MI, right? So, but I'm sure if you looked into it, there's probably been cases of somebody having some kind of thrombus that formed right there in the heart, and maybe they were able to catch it or something like that, or maybe not. Um, I'll look into that. I'll let you know for sure. Now here's where the big difference. Here's where our movies and all of those TV shows that you love watching, they just get it wrong. Okay, because how many times have you seen a movie where the patient had a flat line and they shocked them? In real life, we don't really do that. A flat line is not a shockable rhythm. A flat line is what we call asystole. All right. So we have, or it's also could be PEA. Uh, we have this line of non-electricity, and we're going to slowly get into start talking to you about the heart and the electricity. Okay, so when we think about sorry, my cat. When we start thinking about the heart, if it goes into cardiac arrest, that means it is no longer beating or pumping. So it is different because during an MI, you still have a beating heart. It's just not beating as good as it should be. And during an MI, you still have a pulse, okay? And when you think of somebody in a cardiac arrest, you're going to see no electricity on the EKG, and there's not usually going to be a pulse, okay? That means that this technically in all aspects is saying that this is death. So, but this is not necessarily the end of for some people, because sometimes it's because of electrolyte imbalance, sometimes it's because of shock, sometimes it's because of bleeding. And so if it's something we can fix and correct, then a lot of times we're able to bring back a rhythm and get the heart back flowing and working properly. Cardiac arrest can happen because of, like, say you're in a horrible car wreck, or it could also happen because of a medical condition. Okay, so there's different things that can cause it, but just know that that flat line is usually associated with death. It means that there's no electrical activity, and it's not something we usually shock. Shh, that boy, good Lord. Sorry, that boy's a little hyper this morning. Our last turn on this list is hypoxia. All right, and basically what hypoxia means is that there's a lack of oxygen to tissues. And make sure that you write this definition and that you know this one as well. You'll hear this used in multiple scenarios and situations, like the patient is hypoxic, or they suffer from hypoxia. And it just basically means that a specific area, or it could be all of the body, is lacking oxygen. Okay? And remember, you can come back and take notes for that. This picture right here is a good picture because it's showing you an occlusion. Okay? It's showing you that blockage. So If this occlusion continues to build up more plaque, is the blood going to be able to flow through? No. So what is going to happen to the rest of the line of blood that should be rolling and flowing and keeping this area nice and circulated and supplied with fresh blood? Well, it's not going to be able to. So what are you going to have? We go back up here, where that is going to be infarction. We're going to have death of that muscle, right? And it is initially going to start off as ischemia, right? So make sure you get a good understanding of these words. And that's why this area is dark right here. It's showing that it's slowly dying. That's what it says here, dead heart muscle. Because we don't want to have our heart without its full blood supply, delivering that oxygen, keeping the tissues alive and functioning perfect and like they should be. Does that make sense? And this is the kind of the part where I do lose people at times. So everybody take a sip of coffee. Well, we can all do it together and take deep breaths, because it's really, everybody gets scared when I talk about the conduction system of the heart, but it doesn't have to be scary, I promise you. And I think I said something earlier, and it's really irritating. Let me look real quick, 1 second. I don't think y'all can see my my screen. Yeah, I said a PEA, and that's incorrect. I just meant to just asystole, and that was driving me nuts. A PEA is something different. They're like, Miss Scalp, we don't even know what you're talking. But it was bugging me. Yeah. And we'll get into that, because we're going to learn a little bit of rhythms too. Okay? Is everybody awake?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm here. Still here.
Okay, good. So don't listen to me with that whole PEA thing. I don't know where I was going. Back to some kind of mixed up paramedic delusions. When we talk about our heart, I like to think of it as a symphony, okay? And we know, like, if we've ever been to a symphony, there is a conductor, right? And that conductor is the person who stands at the front of the orchestra pit, and he stands on his tall podium, or she, and they have the little stick, and when they're ready, they tap their stick and they begin. And that tells everybody what to play, when to play it, and how to play it, right? So we have a conductor of our symphony, of our heart, okay? Our conductor is this. It is the sinoatrial node. Now that seems a bit hard to remember, so here's what we're going to call it. Okay? That's what we're going to call it. We're going to call it the SA node. Okay? Because that's a lot easier to remember than sinoatrial node, right? So this is our conductor. All right? And it's important that you understand he is the leader, okay? And I'll explain more. Now, our atrial ventricular node is like the second in command, and we call it our AV node. Okay? So it's an easier way. So now we have an SA node, an AV node. And then we have what's called the atrioventricular bundle, or we just can call it the bundle of His. And that long thing behind it, but it's just, a lot of people just refer to it as just the bundle, okay? And we think of it as kind of third in command, all right? And then we're going to learn, one second, that there is something at the very kind of end, and I don't know why I don't have this up here, but this is the number 4 in command, and it's called the Purkinje fibers, okay? So if you're going to list your nodes, right, in their orders, SA is number 1, the conductor, AV, the bundle, and then the Purkinje fibers, okay? And that's the order we need to remember them. Now here's why. Because the SA node is often referred to, and this is where you should make a little notation on your notes, that the SA node is referred to as the pacemaker or conductor of the heart. And where it's located is it's located right up here in the top right atrium, okay? Whereas the AV is located down here. And then the bundle of His is right in here. And then the Purkinjes are all along, kind of like spider webbing around the heart, okay? So what do they do? Well, I said that, they're conductors and there's backup conductors, right? And that's exactly kind of what they are, because they play a massively important part. The SA node especially, it being the pacemaker, the leader, it is responsible for sending and telling the heart to begin contraction and electricity, to give it its command, right? And it discharges the electrical impulse to the right and left atria, causing it to contract, okay? And in a healthy person, your average person, this node alone has 60 to 80 beats. Here's another abbreviation. If you didn't know it, BPM, 60 to 80 beats per minute. Okay? 60 to 80, that sounds like a normal heart, right? Exactly, because when the SA node is working properly, that's what we're going to have, a normal heart rate. Does that make sense? It slowly will. Now, say our SA node, for whatever reason, poops out, can't perform its conductor job anymore. Well, our heart's not going to just give up. It's got its second in command, the AV node, right? So it steps up to the podium and it decides, okay, I'm going to take over from here. And it starts telling the electrical impulses to begin. But being it's lower and it's weaker, it's not going to be a 60 to 80 beats per minute. It's going to be less, okay? And I'll get you the exact numbers. Say, God forbid, the AV node says, I'm done, I can't do it anymore, I can't be conductor, and it poops out. Next, fortunately, we still have another one that, remember, the bundle. So that bundle kicks in and it does its absolute best. But is it going to be giving you the same beats per minute as what the AV or the SA? No, it's even going to be lower. Okay? And then say, worst case scenario, it poops out. Then you're down to number 4. This is the last one. And this is called the Purkinje fibers. And these little bitty fibers, like I said, they're kind of like spider webs around the bottom, wrapping the heart, encompassing it. And they give a very, very, very mild electricity. And it's basically enough to get you about 10 to 15 beats per minute. So you can see where we went from the SA node pumping at 60 to 80 all the way down. If everything else fails, you got the Purkinje still going at 10 to 15. Now when they go, there's no more electrical conductivity. Okay? Who did I lose here? Be honest. Or did I do just such an amazing job everybody understands?
No, it's good. I understand.
It's good. I understand.
Okay.
It's good. I understand.
Thanks. All right, so now we're gonna move to. I'm fixing to have to get off here and beat me some cats. Stop that! What is y'all's malfunction today? Good Lord, Cardi.
Not the cat. Not the cat.
What if I turn it? Look, I'm gonna turn it around and you're gonna see. Oh, now you want to walk off.
That's so funny.
And now he wants to what? He was sitting there ripping at my carpet. And I turn around and I call him out, and what's he do? Walk out. Oh, I wasn't doing nothing. All right, we're going into cardiac cycle. This is what I got to live with. Crazy cats. The cardiac cycle, this is when you are going to have your aha, light turned on, Edison moment, and you're going to be like, oh, because this happens to everybody. That happened to me. And this is when everything starts kind of falling into place, and you're like, oh my God, everything does completely rely on the other thing. Because remember when we talked about blood pressure a long time ago, and we talked about how when I told you that the terms, I said something about the top number systolic was the heart at work, and diastolic was the heart at rest. Well, and I said, don't worry about that. We'll talk about that when we get into cardiovascular. Well, here we are. So, systolic is telling you this is the heart during its contraction, pumping, right? And the diastolic is when the heart is relaxing. All right. In the phase of the heart, there's 4. There's atrial, distal, atrial, systole, ventricle, diastole, ventricle, systole. And then the term systole refers, right, to working or contracting. Okay? So you can put this word systole and put working or systolic. It's working, okay? And then the term diastole, right? You can put equals relaxation. And that's when the heart is basically rebooting and relaxing and taking a chill time. So this right here tells us working, working, working to push, right? That's the top number of our blood pressure. And now it's just relaxing, chilling in a passive motion as everything is able to refill and wait for the next contraction. Okay? So those play a massively important part in the function of the heart as well as the entire cardiovascular system as a whole. Okay? And that's where the terms systolic and diastolic come from when we think blood pressure. Okay? Now let's pause for a second. And so let's think about a few things. What could cause our heart to beat faster? Well, I'll tell you, if somebody comes running at me with some type of clown outfit or costume, my heart's going to beat faster. I'm terrified of clowns. If I have to get by anything that's extremely high, and heights, I'm terrified of it. My heart's going to beat faster. Okay? So fear can make your heart beat faster. Exercise can make your heart beat faster. Stress is a killer. All of that stress yesterday probably had my heart rate up too. And smoking, just passive, just picking up a cigarette and smoking a cigarette increases your heart rate. And then here's another one that a lot of people don't ever think about. That's something that increases our heart rate, and we see this very frequently in children, is a temperature. When kids spike a fever, their heart rate is usually higher. This happens with adults too, and in animals. Their heart rate increases when their body temperature increases. So we know on the average, somebody's heart rate is about 70 beats per minute. And as y'all start going back into lab, you should be able to start doing that hands-on practice of taking the pulse here at the radius, right? And do we ever take it with our thumb? No, because our thumb has its own pulse. So we can lightly press here, and we should be able to feel our pulse. Right now, mine's kind of mellow. So let's keep it this way today. So we have, everybody has their own normal, right? And I've mentioned that a bunch. And that's called a variant. So anything between 60 and it's usually 100 beats per minute. I don't know why it says 110. And 100 beats per minute is considered normal, okay? And anything has the possibility of increasing that, like stress or excitement or fright, smoking, fever, okay? So know the things that can cause your heart rate to increase. Well, let me ask you real quick, this. Are some of these things really actually good for us? Well, believe it or not, yes. Sometimes we want our heart rate to increase. When we're exercising, that's how many of y'all know in a little bit about how the body works as far as dropping weight and burning fat. Well, to do that, we have to achieve a certain heart rate. And for every person, it's a little bit different, but it's usually a heart rate somewhere in the 120s, 140s, right? And that's technically a really high heart rate, but it's good because it means you are in a fat burning phase, right? So you're that type of stress on the heart is what we call a good stress because it's making the
When you're
heart
running.
stronger. Yeah, when you're
Yeah.
running. Yeah, because what it's doing is it's making your heart stronger. It's helping build that myocardial muscle, right? And we want that. So, and it also can be good because maybe somebody doesn't realize that they have a temperature, but they feel their heart rate increase. So that makes them start trying to think what's going on. But the other ones we don't want. We don't want that. The only time we really want our heart rate up is if, like I said, we're exercising. Now, it can be a life-saving measure if it's due to excitement or what we call our fight or flight. So your life's in danger. Now that clown who's chasing me's got a chainsaw. So my body's got to make a decision. Am I going to run for my life or am I going to freeze? And that's the two responses that humans have. Run or fight, or flight, and I think we've talked about that, but we'll get more into it. So that could be another time that increasing that heart rate really quick, really fast could be beneficial to help get away from the psychotic chainsaw clown, right? This is the heart sounds. I mentioned this yesterday. It's the lub dub, and that's the valves that we were talking about, opening and closing. All right? Lub is the first sound. Okay? And it is when the AV valve as controls, and that's the atrial ventricle, right? And it's going to be a little bit longer and has a little bit lower of a pitch. And then the dub is basically when the ventricle is relaxing. And then that valve going to our, this irritates me. I like that better. Okay. The tricuspid, that way you remember. The tricuspid valve, right? And sometimes you'll hear people call it AV because it's the one between the atrial and the ventricle, but we have two of those. I always find that confusing. So the tricuspid, opening or closing, and then the dub is when the ventricle is relaxing and it's ready to move to the semilunar valve. Okay, and I'm gonna play this video for y'all, but I'm gonna post it in Teams. And what time do we have? Oh, I'm already at 46 minutes. We'll stop here for today, and then tomorrow, get ready because we're gonna go to the fun and exciting parts of the actual electrical activities, and we're gonna find out what all of this PQRST stuff means. Okay? Anybody have any questions for today so far?
Nope.
Nope. Good to go.
Nope.
Let me get a list of our Participants? Oh,
Will
y'all.
this be posted later? Because I keep getting disconnected.
Yes, ma'am. And I will make sure it's a lot sooner than what yesterday. It took me forever yesterday. But yeah, I will be posting it for y'all. All right, y'all guys, have a wonderful day. And if you haven't done your Survey Monkey, please do so. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Have a great day.
You take
Have
the
a good
pictures?
day.